Did you know that, for centuries, Roman soldiers were legally forbidden from marrying? It didn't matter how many wars they won, how many scars they carried, or how many years they served the empire, love was off limits. The law was clear. No legionary could have a wife or children during military service. But then comes the big question. If this was true, why do we find so many soldiers' tombs dedicated to their wives and children? What you're about to discover is one of the most overlooked aspects of the Roman Empire: the secret family lives of its soldiers. Hidden marriages, forbidden loves, illegitimate children. This is the story of the love that Rome tried to erase. The order came from the top, clear and unquestionable. Roman soldiers were not allowed to marry during military service. It was the law, a cold law imposed by the state itself to preserve discipline, mobility, and absolute focus on war. Love, family, personal ties, all of that was seen as a distraction, an unacceptable risk to the most feared war machine of the ancient world. But this ban came at a cost, a silent cost. If a man was already married when he enlisted, his marriage was automatically annulled, as if the union had never existed. The love of youth, the promise made at the temple, the young children waiting at home, all erased with a stroke of a pen, without ceremony, without compassion. And the children born during service? They were considered illegitimate, even if the father raised them, even if he loved them. In the eyes of Rome, they were nothing more than nameless shadows in the official records. This meant they had no right to inherit. They couldn't be recognized as legitimate citizens. They were excluded from the system that held the empire together. And all of this because their father dared to start a family while wearing a soldier's armor. Can you imagine the dilemma? Being forced to choose between serving Rome or protecting your family. Rome could issue decrees. It could engrave its orders in bronze and proclaim them everywhere. But on the empire's frontiers, among isolated fortresses and villages forgotten by the Senate, love found cracks. And in those cracks, entire families bloomed. They didn't wear rings. They didn't make public vows. But the marriages were there, hidden in gestures, in glances, and, centuries later, in the silent headstones archaeologists began to uncover. Tombs of soldiers honoring their beloved wives or their cherished children, engraved in stone with words Roman law would have forbidden in life. These men, trained to hide weakness on the battlefield, also learned to hide their families. Dowries, for example, couldn't be recorded as part of a formal marriage. So soldiers and their partners disguised marital agreements as bank deposits or civil transfers. It was a game of deception, a way to protect the woman's assets in case the relationship ended, or in case the soldier was sent away, never to return. And the most surprising part? Their superiors knew, and turned a blind eye. Veteran centurions, men respected for their bravery, often kept their families visibly present within the garrisons themselves. Some even lived with their unofficial wives while commanding troops with an iron fist. Well-connected officers enjoyed tacit privileges, as if the system silently admitted that the law was too harsh to be enforced universally. Rome pretended not to see. Commanders pretended not to know. And so, thousands of love stories unfolded in secret.
Are you over 40? Pay attention, your prostate needs care. Prostate is a natural supplement made for men who want to improve their performance with their partner, boosting vitality and confidence. It also helps reduce bathroom trips, improve sleep quality, and gives you more energy every day. Take care of yourself now. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to claim your exclusive offer.
But that pact of silence couldn't last forever. At some point, Rome would have to face the contradiction between what the law dictated and what reality looked like. And that moment came with an emperor who knew the frontiers well, who had walked among soldiers and understood their struggles. His name was Hadrian. In 119 AD, he made a bold decision, not to legalize the marriages, but to open a crucial loophole. He allowed soldiers' illegitimate children to receive Roman citizenship and inheritance rights, as long as they were formally acknowledged by their fathers. It was, in practice, the first official recognition that soldiers were not just warriors, but men with lives, ties, and responsibilities. Rome didn't call them fathers on paper, but it finally admitted that they were. And this had an immediate impact. Soldiers who had hidden their children for years now saw the chance to secure a future for them. They no longer had to live torn between duty and affection. A single act could turn a child from the shadows into a Roman citizen. But even with the change brought by Hadrian, the lives of Roman soldiers were far from simple. The empire had begun to acknowledge their children, an important step, no doubt. But marriage still remained in the shadows. The old ban still applied to all legionaries in active service. The sword might be accepted, the child tolerated, but the wife remained a legal ghost, a glaring absence in official records. It was like living between two worlds, the public and the secret, because Rome, even in its rigidity, was full of contradictions. Civil law still applied outside of military life. This meant that, in certain cases, like after discharge or among high-ranking officers, marriage could indeed happen, as long as it was with Roman citizens or women of Latin status. On the farthest frontiers, the shortage of Roman citizen women was striking. Most of the local population was made up of non-Roman provincial women, either enslaved or free. And since legal marriage was only allowed with Roman or Latin status women, many soldiers began turning to a bold solution. They bought and freed enslaved women in order to marry them legally. It was an extreme gesture, but one full of meaning. The man transformed an enslaved woman into a freed woman, and in doing so opened the door to a recognized union. It wasn't just a legal trick. It was an attempt to forge a legitimate bond within a system that tried to erase any trace of lasting affection. For auxiliary soldiers, the situation was even harsher. When they completed their service, they were allowed to recognize only one official union. And this often meant having to choose between different women they had lived with for years and between children. The empire forced them to decide, with the stroke of a pen, who would be the heir and who would be forgotten. Can you imagine that moment? A veteran, marked by scars and forgotten glories, returning to civilian life and being forced to choose between two children, both his, both loved, but only one deemed worthy, in Rome's eyes, to carry his name. These choices tore families apart, turned love into calculation, and made many soldiers feel, even in victory, that they were losing battles Rome would never acknowledge. But even Rome, with all its rigidity, couldn't ignore the force of this silent conflict forever. At the beginning of the 3rd century, a new emperor came to power, a man who knew the battlefield firsthand, who had felt the weight of armor and the dilemmas of command. Septimius Severus. Unlike his predecessors, he wasn't fooled by appearances. He knew soldiers weren't automatons. He knew that behind every shield was a man, a father, a husband, a human being who, while protecting the empire, also wanted to protect his own. And so, he did what no other emperor had dared to do. He legalized once and for all marriage during military service. The decision was revolutionary. For the first time, soldiers could love openly, form bonds without fear, acknowledge children, wives, entire families without having to hide from their own homeland. And the most surprising part? Discipline didn't collapse. The armies didn't become less efficient. In fact, many reports suggest that cohesion among the troops increased, because now they were fighting for Rome and for their families. Now I want to hear your thoughts. Did you already know that Roman soldiers were forbidden to marry? What shocked you the most in this story? Leave your response in the comments. I want to know what you think. And if you enjoyed this story and want to see more epic content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. In the video appearing on screen, we'll reveal the secrets of the musculus, the Romans' secret weapon,